So y'all talked about Zoom versus Teams. What about ChatGPT versus Copilot versus Claude versus all the things? Like we posed a question in our office yesterday, why do we seem to like ChatGPT more? Um, what's your take on that?
Hmm. Tristan, what was I just telling you, man, about
Yeah,
my week?
yeah. Barrett and I
Oh,
had a conversation earlier. He's trying out Claude this week. I think I'm about to cancel my Gemini subscription. And I think you and I were talking about this too, Crystal, is, Nano Banana is great for certain tasks, but I'm not finding myself using it other than making wallpapers for my desktop and random image edits and things like that. One thing that I think is really beneficial is with like something like OpenRouter, to where you have access to all of the AI models in one unified platform. Granted, it is you pay for the token usage, but you kind of get to use all of the big models, especially the pro ones that you would have to normally pay like 200 to 300 bucks a month for with ChatGPT or with Claude. Um, yeah, I don't know. For me, I think there's a lot more use with Copilot if you're living in the ecosystem and you're doing a lot of productivity work with Microsoft Word and Excel. And Alec and I had a discussion yesterday about this as well, as between Teams chats. And if you want like contextual information on a certain subject and that data lives in Teams or in your OneDrive, then I think Copilot is really beneficial for that. Um,
hmm.
for me, doing a lot of automation and a lot of programming stuff, I don't really find a lot of value with it because my communication is more centralized to Teams and email. And I think a lot of the stuff that I do is so fast paced that I'm in and out of documents anyway. Uh, so, ChatGPT is kind of my go-to, but I tried out Gemini for a while. I like the responsiveness of the models with Gemini. My only quaff with it is there's no project folders, um, and there's no like the integrations are kind of slim. And I had mentioned this to Barrett a few weeks ago that it's like driving a Ferrari on a dirt road. The models are really capable and they're fast, but as far as integrations and having project folders that have prompts per folder, being able to add files to those, you kind of start getting into the notebook LLM territory, to where you have
Yeah.
to kind of jump in, and that's not really that's a lot more involved with trying to get information out of versus just doing a quick chat with a project folder and having files that it references. Now, I was an early user of Claude whenever Claude had really low limits, or I'm sorry, really high limits for whenever you have a conversation, you push a bunch of code through it, you would run out really quickly, and that was kind of my issue with it. Was I was finding myself using up all of my usage for the day relatively early into my afternoon, and then I have to switch over to ChatGPT. But I think ultimately I'm going to end up canceling the Gemini and then jumping into a Claude subscription again for a little bit just to see, some of the updates that they had, because it's probably been close to 2 years since I've had, probably about a year and a half since I've had a Claude subscription. So I'm a little bit interested to jump in and see how Claude Code works. I do a lot of stuff with Warp Terminal, which is kind of similar to Claude Code. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm probably gonna end up doing that by the end of the week myself.
Hmm.
I don't know if you guys knew this, and this is a little side thing I found. And I'm still, I mean, most of what I'm using day to day is still ChatGPT, but I so my daughter's fiance, he had an unpaid version of Chat GPT. And so he
Mm.
was giving me some information. He was measuring, had a project, was measuring out the square footage and trying to calculate some trim cost and some other things. And so he was sending me stuff, and I'm like, man, I noticed that in chat you could share the chat out. And I'm like, I wonder if you have to be a paid user to share in that chat. So as of right now, created the chat, dropped in the information, or like in this case, you could have the project, shared it with him, and then real time, it was actually showing the GPT responses real time. So we're both in there. It shows him in. We're both having a conversation, which I enjoyed kind of messing with him, like asking it questions I probably shouldn't have asked it, about the trim. He's like, what's happening here? But I didn't realize that that feature existed. Just kind of discovered it, and it was pretty cool.
Yep,
I wonder, and
that's
now I'm
part
wondering
of
like how much have I not discovered?
the big focus with that, and this kind of leads into ChatGPT Enterprise, where you have a lot more collaboration because that's where there was a lot of things that were lacking there was the actual collaboration piece of that. Like when you share project folders,
Yeah,
the project folders that you share, the chats that you have in those folders are shared with everyone who has access to those folders, which is really beneficial for organizations that want to have control over email responses, or you have a project manager that's uploading documents into the project folder, and then you have a project technician who can have a chat with the files in that project folder, so that way they can kind of understand what's going on, or any updates that have been made to those files, and then also be able to have collaborative chats as well, to where you can literally talk to ChatGPT with somebody else as if it was a group chat, which is super cool.
yeah,
I myself haven't really messed with it much, but having that ability to let multiple people in on a chat, especially for like a project, if you're working on a project, that's really cool.
yeah. That's what I thought. I mean, it's
The
pretty,
context
pretty
is,
nifty.
yeah, you're not working with two different context windows. You're using the same thing, so your information is going to be more consistent.
That's right. So the framing, everything around it it's all unified and the same. Yep,
Yeah.
that makes total sense.
So, like, I'm like a newbie-ish with AI, believe it or not. I do like to play with it. I do like to dabble. I use it every day, ChatGPT, to help me with copy and ideas and stuff. If I were not at all knowledgeable about AI and what AI has to offer folks that are interested, like, where should I start? Like, what would you tell somebody who now you're introducing this concept to, like, at the lowest level?
Mm, it's a good question, Crystal.
I think a big part of that is like, what are you trying to do?
Okay.
So if you're like, I'm not sure about AI, I don't know what I want to do with it, but I want to find out what I could possibly do with it. ChatGPT is really good because obviously you have the free versions where you can jump in and you don't have to commit financially to it. But ultimately, like, the best thing that I, even from watching videos on YouTube, is just asking, hey, um, help me create a meal plan for this week. Like, I think that's a common thing that a lot of people struggle with, just being busy with work and that sort of stuff, and having kids and multiple people to make food for. So you got to go grocery shopping as well. Like, that's what we do, and that's kind of how I got my wife into it, because I do not like doing meal planning. And then you have the planning aspect of it, and then you also have like the grocery list, and I
Yeah.
can't go on the grocery store and coming up with a list of all the different stuff. Then you end up forgetting something, so then you got to stop on the way home from work to stop and grab the one thing that you forgot. So I think probably like a good starting point, if you're getting into AI, is something simple that maybe not even be work related, but is gonna kind of help you do a task that you don't typically enjoy doing, like meal planning. So, like for me, we'll do a 5-day meal plan. After we've determined what sounds good, we'll take the five meal plans, and then we'll say, okay, based on this, I need a grocery list, and then it'll generate a grocery list. So then my wife has
Yeah.
something that she can take with her to the grocery store. And then if she's midway through, she wants to change up an ingredient or do something a certain way, it can kind of tailor it to what she's asking for. And she runs an extremely small business doing like cake pops, and she does embroidery and a bunch of different things like that. One thing that helped her was like generating a price sheet, because
Mm.
she's not business minded, so she's like, I don't know, like, I don't even know where to start with making a price sheet, or building a logo, that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what took off for her, was building her price sheet out. And it went through a series of questions and asked her, how much do you, how much do you spend on your, your cost of goods in order to make your cake pops, or how much do you spend on a sweater, and then how much do you spend on the thread? How much time do you spend doing that stuff, making it, or cooking, or whichever, and then it builds an equation, gives her
Yeah.
healthy
Mhm.
margins, and
Are you
yeah.
guys the one that I really like, and I don't use it enough, and you just reminded me when you're talking about what your wife does, but at our house it's like before I go to, I'll do a lot of our grocery shopping, and before I go to the grocery store, Anna's real good about ordering stuff online, but before I go to the grocery store, I will open my fridge and open, we got like a big freezer garage or
Mhm.
garage freezer, not a freezer garage, and and the pantry and then our spices. And I'll just snap like quick photos.
Yeah.
And and then it's nice because you can take that and dump it into Chat or Gemini or whatever and say, analyze these images and help, like to your point about creating a meal plan, help me come up with something, you know, related to that, but then, kind of help you prepare that list. It's like, oh, you do have this or you don't have this, which is kind of nice. It doesn't always know how much you have, but at least you can hone in on it because
Yeah.
we have a bad habit of buying like the same thing like 10 times over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate with that.
Have
Yep.
100
Yeah.
bottles of mayonnaise.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the one that we were really bad with barbecue sauce.
Mhm.
That's we had like so much. What is the barbecue sauce everybody buys? It was like
Sweet Baby Ray's, or is it like the
Sweet Baby
Carolina?
Ray's or Carolina
yeah,
Treat.
Sweet
Carolina.
Baby Ray's. We had like 8 bottles of Sweet Baby Ray's. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is the deal? Like, it was pretty fun.
So what do
Pretty,
you, so Barrett, maybe this is a question for you. Like, so we talked about home use, but what about at office use? So like what as a leader do you like to use AI for, just maybe not every day, but just a couple, tricks or tips or whatever that you may have for somebody that's, a manager or an owner or even somebody that might be trying to start a business.
yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think I'm probably more reliant on it now than I think I even realize I am. So I had to think for a moment of specific use cases. Um, But the area I'd start is contracts. I'll just tell you one that just hit for me recently, and it was we had our um, vehicle renewals that just came through. So that was the most recent one, our auto insurance renewals. And I took last year's and this year's, dumped it all into a project and had it do a comparison of the differences and to make sure, and then to have it generate questions that it might want to ask for me, like as my agent, so that I'm informed. And if I need to email my own agent and ask questions, if there's a material increase to the total cost or people are on the policy that maybe shouldn't be, like it'll catch that and help me kind of focus on it. So that was a big one. That saved a lot of time. Whereas before, I go back just a couple years, I would have had to read through the policies or schedule a meeting, typically schedule a meeting with my agent, and then just rely on what he's going to tell me and be like, okay, and it's this long drawn out process. Now it's much quicker. Same thing for our healthcare policies, being able to take last year's policy, this year's policy, have it run an analysis and then do, some comparative analysis for me. Like we have our provider and she's great. But I like, once I've made a decision, I like to be able to take the information and then kind of put it out there for, for you guys, like for our employees and people that we work with. It's like, okay, what questions might they have? What changes are we seeing? These policies are relatively the same, but is there anything that it caught that's different between them, or things that I should look out for? And I'll frequently ask it questions I'm thinking of, like, is this reasonable for our industry? Is this reasonable for the another industry? Like, what should my expectations be for cost increases? Like, I've had it do a CEO level analysis of certain, contracts and information that's presented to me, so I can kind of, at least from the way I approach things, I like to get the right questions,
Yeah.
so that I know kind of where my thinking should be. So I'm not really dependent on it to answer things, but to at least give me the context so then I can make better decisions. And that's I've been using it a lot for that recently, like complex things, whittling it down and then giving me, the high level on it. So,
Yeah, I think for me, is writing. I have a hard time writing emails and keeping tone to where I'm I write very directly, and I think sometimes the tone there isn't
mm,
perceived the way that I would normally speak it. So I like to rewrite a lot of emails using my project folder for that because it helps me
mm.
align my wording. So I'm not necessarily like I want to get my point across directly, but not necessarily
Yeah.
coming off, in not I wouldn't say a hostile way, but more like to where I'm not sounding so blunt whenever I say things because we deal with a lot of information and it's very easy to make mistakes by answering or even asking a question the wrong way.
Hmm.
And, you know, a lot of people rely on us to come up with solutions relatively quickly, especially by the time that it gets to me and it's sitting on my desk, they've been, waiting for, you know, 2 to 3 days at that point and going through the normal support process. If it's an escalation issue or it's something that, takes some advanced engineering. Um, and my questions, I kind of ask the questions like an engineer, or I answer questions like an engineer a lot. So, we all know how engineers talk, just very, very
Yeah.
direct and to the point. So I think it's really helped me a lot with that. And that's probably one of the number one things that I use it for in the office. Like from an office management perspective or, client facing perspective, I do a lot of coding with it. Like, I'll take a workflow that I'm working on and I'll
Yeah.
copy the whole workflow, I'll paste it in there, and I'll say, analyze this workflow. What do you think? Or, what do you think about this workflow? And is there anything that I can do to improve it? Can you run a simulation against this? What could you see being a problem with this workflow? Where could I have errors? And I have a lot of success in that as well. I've found a lot of issues with, our PSA, the API for our PSA only takes, you know, certain inputs and it's really helped me kind of build a lot of our workflows to be compatible and not have to keep running through and having errors and even, add in certain features like with our booking calendar. Every 5 minutes, it syncs with the calendar. And after a booking appointment is done, instead of having a database full of appointments that have passed, you know, 15 minutes after the appointment has finished, it gets deleted from the database because we don't really need that
Mm.
information anymore. So, coding is probably, second to email writing.
It's funny you mentioned the writing part of it too, because I think, first of all, kudos to you, Tristan, for kind of identifying your writing style or how you write. 'Cause I think some people don't necessarily do that. And I appreciate that because, in person, that's not how you are. You're not that blunt, like in normal conversation, just like we're on this call today. And it's not like that. So it's interesting, just like when we have these tools, you kind of have to know a little bit about either yourself or what you're looking for. And one of the things that I'm super cautious about, particularly when making decisions, is the inherent bias. Sometimes it's there.
Mhm.
I want constructive feedback. And what I've found is, and I think I was showing you earlier this morning, I have my EQI personality profiles. I have my tilt profile. I have my forte and my Colby, all of the like EQ and leadership assessments, and I fed it in, and I start getting kind of a matrix of who I am, and I've kind of built it into the system. Well, the interesting thing is, like, when you ask it like very easy questions like how am I doing as a leader, it gives you this like fluffy,
Mhm.
very like, no, I'm like, that's not what I need, like it's a
Yeah.
very pump up your ego type response. So then, it's trying to figure out ways to be, to make sure that it's looking at things objectively
Right.
and And sometimes that means like being blunt or reframing it in a way that helps it understand like what the output's supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
Because we ask questions that are very, you know, like it can't read me in the moment. It doesn't know, hey, today I need some create, some very direct insight. I'm looking
right.
for constructive criticism, right? So you got to spell it out. It's just
Yeah.
interesting.
There's the cool thing is too, I don't know if you've noticed this, but with recent updates to ChatGPT, if you go in your settings and then you go to personalization, there's different characteristics like
Mhm.
warm, enthusiastic, headers and lists and emojis, it's more of a formatting thing. Base tone and style. I mean, mine is nerdy. And maybe that's something that you got to look at changing on your side is like you have professional, which is polished and precise, friendly, warm and chatty, candid, direct and encouraging. Quirky is playful and imaginative, efficient, concise, and plain. Mine's exploratory and enthusiastic about stuff. And then you have cynical, which is critical and sarcastic. So maybe you want some constructive feedback, you got to change it to cynical and
Yeah.
sarcastic.
Yeah. I
But
don't like
Does
there's
that.
your I was gonna say, have you named your chat? Does it have a name or its own like
it does not have a
actual?
name. I don't think I will. I call it. I just call it chat.
Is it a him or a her?
It's an it.
Ooh,
It's a
yours is a
non.
him.
It's a non-humanoid.
It's an it.
It's a non-binary binary.
Uh,
Yeah,
it's funny though. I definitely think of mine as like a male persona. I don't know why.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think mine has no sense of humor sometimes because I feel like it's all work. Or I'm always asking it to do something super deep.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
so yeah, okay, interesting.
So I wonder if mine is, hey, can you hear me? And what are you, a man or a woman? Oh, maybe I shouldn't ask you that. Probably edit that out. Still. Oh, it's this.
At all. We're just having a conversation. I am neither man nor woman. I'm just here to deliver the best insights and analysis.
Yeah.
If you ever want to balance deep
No,
dives with some
definitely a woman.
You can change the voice though.
Huh?
You can change the voice. I wonder if you go in the custom instructions. I'm gonna go in here to the end of mine and put. Oh, I've run out of space. See, my context window is like jam packed. The last character. If I put a space at the end, I'm out of space. Let's see. You are a woman. We'll save that and try a chat here. Are you a man or woman?
I'm a Muppet.
I'm a woman. So
That's okay. Okay.
so if you go into your personalization and tell it what it is, then it will take whatever whatever assigned gender.
How is yeah, that could be really fun. These integrated apps in like Chat GPT. I don't remember ever adding StubHub or Expedia to mine, but apparently
Oh
I did at
wow.
some point. I sure did. Look at
You can
that.
do under your
I
setting, there's a thing called orders, and you can go look at order history. You can buy something with ChatGPT. So if you're like, I don't know if you can do Amazon, but like StubHub, hey, give me tickets, because the whole point of this is for you to have a conversation with the voice agent. Hey,
Right.
I want tickets to, you know, whatever movie, the 9 o'clock showing of whatever movie on Friday night. I want two
wow.
tickets, and it'll walk you through. Hey, I found these two tickets. Where do you want your seats at? I want middle seating, so that I can have a good view midway, up the aisle, and it can go through and pick all that stuff out for you and say, hey, well, all right, cool. This is going to be $27.50. You want me to go ahead and buy this? Absolutely, let's go for it. Cool, I got you reservations. I'll go ahead and add a thing on your calendar for Friday at 9 o'clock for night out for two. And I think there's like DoorDash or maybe Grubhub integrations as well to this that
Hmm.
you can order food. Like I'm really interested. Like I want to be able to tell it, and I think Google does this actually. But I want to tell it, hey, I want reservations for this restaurant on Saturday at 6 p.m. For me and my wife to go out, and then also you know, reserve some flowers at, you know, whatever flower shop beforehand. I want them
Yeah.
ready by 4 p.m. so I can pick them up on the way home. That sort of
So
stuff.
you can add OpenTable.
Wow. But what is Chat GPT doing with all this data from us? Like, should we be concerned at some point that our privacy is just non-existent anymore? Or does that not bother
Too
you
late.
guys personally? Yeah.
For me, the services that you're using like OpenTable, they're already collecting data on you. So
Well, that's a good point.
Google is probably one of the biggest data brokers in the world. And like if you go back and look, like, there's a bunch of anti-privacy and antitrust stuff that they've dealt with, even in like answering to Congress and things like that. So like I think that like for me, data security is a really huge thing, especially with like what information is on the internet. I think it's like it's the same thing as whenever you're out in public and you need to be careful who you're talking to.
Mm.
And it's the same thing on the internet to where you need to be careful of where you're typing your name, where you're typing your email. We all know if you go to Best Buy and type your email in there, that your email will be destroyed within a year if you don't unsubscribe from their newsletter. And you're going to have, you know, stuff coming from HP or Dell or whomever they sell your data to, because they're going to sell your data. It's just inherently part of data mining. So I just think being cautious of where you're putting your data at. AI, ChatGPT specifically, Google Gemini, they all are going to train their models off your data. But if you look into like the business plan, for example, does not train your data or train off of your data. It specifically doesn't do that. So like, and there's things like that to where you have to pay for that. So if you don't want your data to be used in the training, then you're going to pay a premium on that because their product becomes better based upon your usage of it. And same thing with using a computer. Do you want to report the usage to the manufacturer, and that helps them build the next version of your operating system or the next version of your computer because based upon what you're using on it and how your experience is going to help them kind of build the future for whatever platform or product or whatever they're offering.
Mhm.
So I mean, overall
Yeah.
I think it can be a good thing, and I think it also can be a bad thing if it's abused. It just depends on where you're interacting, and you just got to kind of be cautious of that.
And I feel like there's a draw, and that was kind of goes back to certain biases and certain things that are built in. Like you kind of have to be aware, conscious of certain things, right? Like because they've got if you have the data there, to me it's less about what it knows about me or whatever, and existing. It's kind of like what you're getting out of the system, right? And then why are you getting this information? We were joking, Tristan, earlier because last night we were chatting about you wanting some AirPods or something, or getting some new AirPods, something. I don't. We were talking about that, and like legit. Then you get an email this morning with like free AirPods in your inbox, right? So
The email subject line was AirPods for Tristan. I'm like, that's weird.
I did not register anywhere. Just to be really clear, like that did not happen. Yeah, but I feel like the more information that's out there about an individual. And I've noticed certainly since I've become more publicly engaged, like definitely an uptick in spear phishing and information. Yeah, like I just see it much more. And a lot of that information, is accessible. So then it's like, okay, can AI use that? Or do people become more susceptible? But the flip side to that argument is, okay, if you almost have to become like a hermit or you're a public figure, It's
Yeah.
like, what's the in between here with this? Like, what's reasonable, And
Right.
that's where I struggle with it. Like, I get nervous if I look at image recognition and things like that. Like with my children being on social media, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
videos and that kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, you know, I could definitely see um, that being dangerous or so. Yeah, I don't know. There's
Yeah,
elements
no,
of
I
this.
totally agree with that. Like one thing that, from like a cybersecurity perspective, and then also from like just data privacy perspective. I don't know if you guys are familiar with flock cameras, and you go to Lowe's and there's the black poles with the solar panel on top and
Mm,
they have a camera attached to them. Those are flock cameras. Um,
Okay.
I highly encourage you to look into those on YouTube. Those they're able to be hacked into, and their video streams are not encrypted.
yeah.
And the crazy part is like they read license plates. And I was having a conversation with my wife about it the other day because she doesn't feel comfortable going to Walmart, and if I'm not with her and taking the kids, because it's very slow for her to get out of the car, get the kids out, walk to, there's a lot going on, and her attention is not to her surroundings, it's to our children. And if in that world, like if somebody's watching her, and where I become a little bit more, conscious about this stuff, is to
Mm.
where if you're in the Walmart parking lot, one of those cameras is watching her, and there's somebody watching that data stream. It's along the highway, it's all throughout town. You can literally follow someone home without even being in the car behind them now.
Wow.
And and that's kind of where I'm concerned with where we're going with the AI aspect to it as well, because you can hook up an AI bot to
Mm.
it, and you know it's not like it's hard to figure out how to do this kind of stuff anymore, because all you have to do is ask. You go into
Yeah.
chat, you say, hey, how do I do this theoretically? And it gives you an
Right.
action plan on how to execute. So, that's just
On the flip side, it could be part of, the employee or client or customer experience where, you walk into our building and it's like, da da da
yeah.
da, good morning, Tristan, welcome. And then like, the little confetti guns go off that you
Yeah,
had.
yeah,
Can we get that?
Yeah, absolutely, we should get it. And then like the camera sees you, it's like, what's up, boss man? And it's
yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
like everybody comes to greet you, but then in
Yeah,
dystopia, they're all not human. They're just a bunch of AI robots. So, there's
Right.
that too.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
do like, coming to the office in the morning, and if the door's locked, all I gotta do is smile. And I'm sure the collection of my face in the morning is pretty funny. If you looked it up, as I come in, I make the most cheesiest smile to unlock the door.
We should look that up and just look at that all together. We definitely need to do that.
mhm.
I'm going
So
to log into
you
it,
mentioned
by
the
the way.
flock cameras. So like it's funny. I just seen a post on Reddit about that. In the
Yeah.
Wilmington subreddit where they noticed one at a restaurant. Someone noticed one at a restaurant. Are those easy to put up? Can just anyone theoretically do something like that? I guess so.
They're,
Probably maybe on a lower scale.
they could. I mean, Flock is a company that does it on a massive scale. So
Okay.
their whole thing was, and the whole point behind this is, and, like, I don't have a problem with the flock cameras in general. What I have a problem with is that for one, that they're everywhere. They're literally on the highways. Like, you could be tracked down, within probably hours, because all they got to do is go in and type your license plate in. Um, but the entire intent behind it was, if you had, like, let's say, a silver alert, or like somebody had a stroke and they're confused, and then they disappear, and they want to track them down, or in the case
Mm,
of like a kidnapping, or there's somebody who's a wanted individual, that initially is what that stuff is built for. um like, they're putting it in parks, and like, I have an inherent problem with that, because if somebody accesses the camera, they can see, how many kids are in the park.
Mm.
um it has facial recognition features to where it'll track people. The camera will move around. So, and that's just kind of scary to me. I mean, especially from having younger children, and being that we go to the park quite frequently. And, you know, what are they going to do? What would somebody do with a picture of my son?
mhm.
If they see him on this other playground, and could they potentially target my family because of my work in the IT space? And there's a lot of things that we do security wise that could be very attractive to the wrong person.
Mm.
And, that just kind of creates a little bit of insecurities for me with the technology of it.
I mean, I could see that. I
You know,
could. I mean,
there, there's a map you can look up. There's a website called deflock.org, and it looks like for Wilmington we have. Let me see. So in our area specifically, we have 67 flock cameras in our area.
Wow.
what? That's crazy to me.
And are people like, so are companies installing them with the best of intentions? Like, are they putting them
Yeah,
in their parking lot because they're like, oh, this,
they target schools and places
okay,
like Lowe's. Um, you know, it's for the security, to where if like you have somebody who shouldn't be going near a school drives into a school zone, and it can
okay,
flag, that can flag. And that's the part of it where I'm like, okay, cool, but there's a part to it to where it's like, okay, but you have to give up. There's a compromise. You got to give up something in order to gain something.
right,
And
True.
my thing is like, is it worth it? Versus, just having a camera in a school zone, sure, but why do we need four of these going up I-40 that, or 140, that can tell, you can tell literally, if you followed me home on these cameras, you can figure out what exit I got off of, because if I'm driving 70 miles an hour, I pass two cameras, and then the third camera I don't pass after 5 minutes, I got off of the exit before. And then
Mm.
you can,
Guess I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's by
yeah.
interesting.
And a lot of these cameras have Wi-Fi networks too, so you can pull up behind one. They got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and you can pull up behind one and just, with the right equipment, and even with if you have like an AI machine with you, like a gaming laptop that you can run local AI on, crack the Wi-Fi password and get into it, which is not an uncommon practice anymore. You can get into it and get all the connection information. But one of the big things is people are pen testers are accessing these things via their public IP address and just getting right into them, viewing the video stream, and it's got all the features to it too, like the license plate tracking, the facial recognition, all of that stuff is accessible.
Hmm. Interesting.
yeah. It's getting interesting, and it's also, I think, to a lot of people, just getting frightening. So
Yeah,
I guess best practices, and like you said, if you feel uncomfortable, take somebody else with you to a store, or, just being aware. I think the times now that we're living in are just different. Um,
yeah.
for some of us that have seen different times, for some people, this is um
Yeah,
somewhat
here's
normal.
the map for our region.
Oh, zoom in. Deflock. Interesting.
Wow.
We're here. They're made by Flock Safety, which is the company that makes these. And not, like I said, not trashing this company at all. I think that their intent is there for doing the
So it's
right
like a
thing.
self-powered unit, or how does it
Yeah,
connect?
it's self-powered. It has a solar panel on it, and then it's LTE.
Hmm.
And then the LTE hits like a server somewhere, or depending if they have local internet.
So by that you mean the video content, like the actual feed is on a
Yeah,
server
you can
somewhere,
actually, or
or
you can stream the video feed if you can manage to get access to the camera directly, which is not really hard. And
I
then you
was
can
gonna
do
say, yeah.
IP scanning, and there's lists out there of public access credentials to get into
Hmm.
them. Some don't have an admin password, and according to this company, that's the responsibility of the municipality that puts them in. So like ultimately with these over here, um, like Wrightsville Beach. If you're driving on Wrightsville Beach, you're coming on the causeway. I mean, you're not gonna be able to get to Wrightsville Beach without passing one of these.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's just
Oh,
they're
sorry.
all over.
Is that me?